Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of The Conversation. And today I got a topic, and it's pretty interesting. And really the topic is the real reason why Nick Wright fears these Clippers going into these playoffs. So that's what I want to get into in today's video. But before I get into that, I want you guys to make sure you go ahead and hit the like button and hit the subscribe button, because we're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers as soon as possible, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. So let's just get straight into it. Now, I've been, all of you guys know that the season is, quickly ramping up and games are on their way. Actually games have already happened. The scrimmages have been taking place in the Orlando bubble, and we're starting to see these teams get lathered up, players get their footing under them. Now, before I go into this whole Nick Wright spiel that I'm about to get into, first of all, let me just give you guys my sort of take on what I think about the games thus far. Looking at the game, the first highlights that I watched between the Orlando Magic and the Clippers, looking at the new setup in the arena and how everything was, it threw me off. Like it was weird. I was watching, I was like, man, this is unusual. I wasn't expecting it to look like that. But as the game started to continue on, and the NBA doing a really good job with its sound effects and commentary, and once you started seeing players just get into the game, I kind of forgot about the crowd and all this, and I actually started enjoying the game. I think they're going to improve maybe the sounds and all of this stuff throughout the playoffs. But for me, I'm starting to get acclimated to it, and I think the NBA is pulling off a pretty good job doing it. The only thing that's a little bit weird is the home and away games, when you see teams playing with away jerseys and home jerseys, although it's the same court. And they're, putting like the last game the Clippers played against the Wizards, it was an away game. So you saw the Wizards logo on the floor and the Clippers were in their blue for their road game. So it was a little bit strange, but I'm starting to get used to it slowly. So let's talk about Nick Wright. Okay, all of you guys who know who Nick Wright is, an American sports commentator. He's on Fox Sports. He's there with his show First Things First, that he used to co-host with Chris Carter. But now he's on the show pretty much by himself, and they've gotten some other people to come in and out, but it's pretty much his show, and he's pretty much running amok. He pretty much says whatever he wants to say. Now, going into these scrimmages, let me just say, first of all, I don't believe that these scrimmages are a barometer of how teams are going to perform, but so far the Clippers are 2-0. They beat, I believe it was the Orlando Magic and the Washington Wizards, fine, but their stars only played basically 15 minutes, I believe. So now the interesting thing, though, about them is they've been missing a bevy of players in Patrick Beverley, Zubac, who just recently came back, Lou Williams, and Montrezl Harrell. All of these guys have been out of the bubble, but these guys have been able to perform really well. And a really bright spot I want to point out is Amir Kofi. Amir Kofi has really surprised me, man. This guy's playing really well. I mean, he's playing really, really well. And I think he's a bright spot for that team coming off the bench. And it just shows you the depth that the Clippers have, and this is what brings me to Nick Wright and why he fears the Clippers so much, especially a healthy Clippers going into this playoffs. If you've been following Nick Wright in his commentary all throughout the season, he's been making jest of the Clippers and Kawhi Leonard and how he doesn't really feel that they're all of that, blah, 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 blah. But before I get into that, I want you guys to just take a listen to a soundbite of Nick Wright just talking about the Clippers since the NBA season has picked up again.
And Broussard always says, that I like to criticize Kawhi Leonard. Let me give Kawhi Leonard, be the first person to say this. Kawhi has a chance to be the absolute best Robin in the NBA. I don't know if him or Anthony Davis, but I mean, given how Paul George playing,
there it is.
I mean, Kawhi as a complimentary role was outstanding. But in seriousness, what could you take away from it on the Clippers front when no Patrick Beverley, no Landry Shamet, no Ivica Zubac, no Montrezl Harrell, so they still don't have their rotation flushed out. Hopefully by the time the postseason actually begins, much less the regular season begins, they will have their rotation flushed out, because Wilds, I'm not saying they have to have both Harrell and Zubac when the season starts July 30th against the Lakers. But you can't be dusting off and waving the smoke away from Joakim Noah in big NBA games.
Oh, yes, you
it's
can.
It's not 2014
oh, yes,
anymore.
You can.
No. And so Joakim Noah
yes, you can.
being a...
yeah.
Oh, you can?
Now, in those sound bites, you heard Nick Wright sort of talking about the Clippers. He's also gone as far as saying that, because Kawhi Leonard dropped 9 points the first game and Paul George, I believe, scored 15. He's like, Kawhi Leonard is going to be the greatest Robin in NBA history. And he knows good and well, how can Kawhi Leonard be a Robin when the guy's a two-time finals MVP winner and two-time NBA champion? He knows that. But that's just him downplaying the Clippers because he knows the legitimate threat. Now, if you listen to him, I think Nick Wright's job is to convince people that the Clippers are no big deal. Let me just give you a rundown of their roster, just so you guys know. The Clippers have Patrick Beverley, Amir Kofi, who I think is a surprise for me. I wasn't paying much attention to him, but he's a real bright spot. Paul George, who I've been trying to tell you guys is a really good player. I don't know where this narrative came that Pascal Siakam is better than Paul George. He is not better than Paul George, guys. I'm sorry to say it. He is just not. Paul George is a better two-way player. He's a better defender, better shoot, everything. So for me, Paul George is a better player, and you guys are going to see just how of an efficient scorer and how hot Paul George can get. I told you guys that he is prolific coming off of screens, coming off of picks, hitting spot-up three-pointers. It's something he's really, really good at. I've said this a number of times, and you guys are beginning to see that. So don't be surprised at that. I'm not, but I've been trying to tell you guys this all season long. Then they have John Michael Green. They have Montrezl Harrell. They have Reggie Jackson. They have, obviously, Kawhi Leonard. They have Rodney McGruder, Marcus Morris, and Joakim Noah, and Lou Williams, and Landry Shamet, and Zubac, and it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And what you're seeing, excuse the noise in the background, what you're seeing in these scrimmage games is that the Clippers are beating teams with bench scoring. Like the bench is coming in and finishing games. If you go back and look at the highlights between them and the Wizards, granted it's the Washington Wizards, I don't think John Wall played, but they were able to beat that team basically with the bench mob. And I think this is what makes the Clippers so explosive. And Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell are not even there. And these guys you can pretty much pencil them in every night to give you between 40 to 45 points between these two guys coming off the bench. So I think the Clippers are really scary, and this is the reason why Nick Wright likes downplaying them. Now, the Lakers dropped their opening game. Somehow, the media said LeBron James looks sensational, and they lost. To me, it's unbelievable how they come up with these narratives, but I think going into these playoffs, going into the regular season, Nick Wright is going to be forced to take these guys seriously because they're no joke. They're no joke. And the season is kicking off in a few days, and I think it's going to be sensational. I think the Clippers are going to have all of their players at the ready, and they're all going to play well. Like, if you look at the regular season standings before the shutdown in the Western Conference, the Clippers are the number 2 seed right behind the Lakers. And yes, the Western Conference is going to be stacked, but if the playoffs started today and things didn't change, they're going to be playing against the Dallas Mavericks, who some people think, like Jalen Rose and others, think that it may be a bad draw for the Clippers. Maybe that's not the team that they necessarily want to face in the first round because they're real explosive with Kristaps Porzingis, Luka Doncic, and all of this, and with the coaching of Rick Carlisle and all of this, that they could potentially pose a threat. And in all of these analysis that I keep seeing every single day on TV of people coming in and out every day talking, they never talk about these opposing teams. Who's going to guard these Clippers? This is the point in all of this where I just really get confused. They talk about who's going to guard AD, who's going to guard this person, who's going to guard that person. What one team has players that can deal with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George? And even if you're able to deal with them, then you have 2 bench mob players coming off the bench that can potentially give you 40 points on a given night. So if you think of their starting lineup, they could have Lou Williams, Paul George, Montrezl Harrell, Kawhi Leonard, Zubac, all of these guys on the court. Who's going to guard all these? I mean, how many wing defenders do you have? And if you're talking about the Lakers, they've lost some of their best wing defenders. And yes, they brought in J.R. Smith to replace Avery Bradley. If you guys think that's an upgrade, well, you guys will let me know what you guys think about that. But for me, I think Nick Wright understands the writing on the wall. He just doesn't want to admit it, maybe to himself and his followers. But for me, I think this is the real reason why he's afraid of a healthy Clippers roster. Because remember, these guys are winning games without they're missing players from their starting lineup. Like Patrick Beverley's not even there. And Zubac isn't even there yet, but I think he's come in now. So What I want to know from you guys is, do you think that Nick Wright seriously fears the Clippers, or in his heart, he believes that they're really not that good? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Again, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button because we're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Once again, this is Charles here from Dreamerspro, wishing you guys an amazing day. Peace.